So it's a cold and damp morning, but sowing needs to continue. Now, broad beans are a fantastic resource. If, like me as a kid, you couldn't stand broad beans, give them another try. Just make sure that when you pod them, you take out the outer thick rubbery cover that's actually on the broad bean itself before cooking. They're a really versatile food. So favia beans, broad beans and field beans. At this time of year, we're focusing on broad beans. Broad beans can grow in a variety of different spaces. You can grow them in pots and you can grow them actually into the ground. This year we're going to be growing them in beds and probably some sparingly around the plot. Planted some broad beans a few months ago and I also sowed some about 2 weeks. And in the sowing I've got several trays. Now really I could have done with slightly deeper trays, but I work with what I've got. In this one you can see that I've got some beans actually coming up, and all these, after having a little look, these are all ready to shoot. So these broad beans, another couple of weeks, hopefully, fingers crossed, these will be ready to go into the ground. Whereas these ones are ready to go into the ground now. These ones are plenty big enough to be absolutely fine in the ground at this time of year. What I will do is plant them in nice and deep, and then they'll be covered with fleece. Fleece is really beneficial at this time of year for you to start some of the crops that may be damaged by frost. Now it doesn't stop all frost damage, but it does help protect it from that cold wind that can still hit us at this time of year. These plants are about 2 months old, sown outdoors in these modules and just kept in a cold greenhouse. So obviously at this time of year it's a little bit slower, and these are ready to go out. Literally on the module you can see that the roots are all there, and this is ready to go out. Now these are quite healthy, and I think I've got about 6 or 7 trays of these. There is some that haven't germinated. Now at this time of year it's not uncommon. Damp conditions, cold conditions, and sometimes you'll get some of the seeds actually rotting in the pot. But give it time. Some of the ones that haven't germinated may actually germinate a little bit later on. But I've got plenty to actually plant out today. That's why we always excess plant our seeds. Now the varieties that we've got Masterpiece, which are the newer ones that I planted. These ones here are Exhibition. What we'll do now is go and plant them outside. So there is some little bits of couch grass, so I'm going to dig that out before I actually plant the broad beans. So this bed was topped up with our own compost last year, so it's still quite chunky. It will not do any harm whatsoever to the plants going in. If you can weed your bed a little bit, if you've made them the previous year, before you start planting, it makes life a lot easier in the long run. You'll still get weeds though, so you have to keep on top of it. Now normally, because I'm fleecing, I don't always use hoops, but for this I'm actually going to put some bits of stronger metal wire into the ground, just to keep the fleeces off the tips a little bit. I found last year with having the fleece directly on the plants, even though 9 times out of 10 it worked absolutely fine, I did get a little bit of tip damage frost. And since I've already got these wires, I'm going to put these in now. So these will keep the fleece directly touching the new plants. So let's start getting these in the ground. With some of these Sutton Dwarf broad beans, I'm going to put them next to my strawberry bed. These will be all done and dusted and harvested before there's any issues with anything else in this bed. At the moment it's strawberries and herbs, but I do interplant with beetroots and lettuces as well. This bed's a lot more shady at this time of year, but come mid-spring onwards it starts getting a lot more light. And I'm actually going to put these into pots to see how well they actually grow through the rest of the year. But I've got to go and pick up compost first.